Welcome to a brand new episode of the Kansas City Suburbs Showdown. It's been a while since we've done one, but this is going to be a really good episode because we're comparing one of the most popular suburbs on the Kansas side versus one of the greatest on the Missouri side. This one's all about Overland Park, Kansas versus Lee Summit, Missouri. We're going over everything from the location, the cost of living, the community feel, the home prices, new construction versus older homes. And if you stick around to the end, we're also going to break down how quickly these homes in the most popular Kansas City suburbs are selling and how much over the asking price most of them are selling for. Part number one is all about the location. And here's what Overland Park looks like on the map side by side. You've got Lee Summit on the right side of the screen. You'll notice that they're comparable distances away from downtown Kansas City. One of the major differences, if you do a lot of travel, you go to the airport, you're flying to different places around the country, is that Overland Park is going to be a little bit closer to MCI and Lee Summit just because it's on the opposite side of state line. It's going to be anywhere from 35 to 50 minutes away, with Overland Park being anywhere from 25 to usually about 45 minutes away if you're really far south. Now, one of the major differences between your day-to-day life, how living in one of these cities feels versus the other, is that Lee Summit definitely has a lot more small town feel. There's a lot of land. The population density is almost half of what you would see in Overland Park. And Overland Park, to the contrary, has got quite a few different shops, restaurants, entertainment spots to go to. It's definitely a little bit more hustle and bustle because a lot of people have moved there over the last 10, 20 years. In fact, if you look at the age of Lee Summit compared to Overland Park, Lee Summit is about 100 years older than the city of Overland Park. I think it was established in like 1868 or around the 1860s, Overland Park being established somewhere around the 1960s. Because of that, what you'll notice is that the downtown area of Lee Summit, it feels a little bit more historic. Lee Summit was really a town built around the railroad because it was the highest point on the railroad between Kansas City, Missouri, and of course St. Louis back in the day. And Overland Park, being a newer city in the metro area, definitely has a newer city feel, and the population has absolutely exploded way faster than the growth that you would have seen in Lee Summit over the last couple decades. Here's an example of what I mean. So if we get the side-by-side backup of Overland Park on the left, Lee Summit on the right, Overland Park is about 76 square miles. According to Google, Lee Summit is about 66, so we're talking about a 10 square mile difference. Overland Park's population is around 200,000 people. It's just under that. Lee Summit is just over 100,000 people. So 10 square mile difference, but you've got double the population size in the city of Overland Park. And that's why if you're looking for a more hustle, bustle, more densely populated area with a little bit more restaurants, entertainment spots, shopping places to go to, that's what you're going to find in Overland Park. And to the contrary, if you're looking for more of a small town feel where there's a little bit more distance between things, there are a couple more populated parts of town, but really, for the most part, you've got a lot of exciting developments, a lot of room for development. Lee Summit certainly fits the bill. Now, I do want to point out one of the major differences that draws a lot of people to the city of Lee Summit, which is nature lakes. You've got 5 of them. They all have a different type of feel. There are different types of homes and prices around some of those lakes. Some of them are private, some of them are public, but that's just not something that you're going to get in the landlocked area of Overland Park. Now, one last thing that I want to say about the differences between Overland Park and Lee Summit is that Overland Park is such a big city, and because of the densely populated population and how quickly the city has grown, keep in mind that it's a very young city compared to Lee Summit, you've almost got 3 different parts, and we've covered this in other videos. You've got North Overland Park, which is the more historic area of the city. You've got the downtown Overland Park, which is in North Overland Park. This is everything north of 435. Older homes that were built in the 1950s onwards, lower home prices as a result of that, and some of the older parts of town as a whole. Mature trees, mature landscaping, all the good things that you would find in some of those homes and neighborhoods established in like the 1950s and onwards. Second part of Overland Park is like central Overland Park. So it's 435 highway down to around 151st Street, maybe 159th Street. This is almost like the second phase of development from the early 2000s, and there are even some new homes that are being built and some new subdivisions out there even to this day. So that's where you've got all of the newer shops, like 135th Street is one of the most popular areas, etc. And then the third part of Overland Park, which I refer to as South Overland Park, is where you'll see quite a lot of development today. It's anywhere from Stillwell all the way to the edge of Olathe, Kansas, and it's anywhere from 159th Street all the way out to 199th Street. Now, this is where you'll find a little bit more of the small town feel that you would similarly find in Lee Summit. That's where a lot of that is old farmland, some of it's vacant land, and that's where all of the new larger subdivisions are going in, and all the new development is headed in Overland Park. Now, if you do look at Lee Summit, you've got almost like 3 different corners of the city. You've got like the Winterset area, you've got all the shops along Highway 50, you've got downtown Lee Summit, Summit in like the northwest corner of the city and the southern corner of the city. You've got Raintree Lake, you've got Lake Winnebago right there as well. You've got a lot of subdivisions being developed and going in up and down the roads connecting those two. And then finally, you've got the Lakewood area, which is in the northeast part of the city. And similar to Overland Park, it's different feel in each different area throughout the city. And while you'll find it a little bit quicker to get to each part of the city around Lee Summit, you definitely have quite a little bit more highway to deal with in the city of Overland Park. Hence, a little bit more hustle and bustle in your day-to-day life in Overland Park and a little bit more small town feel in Lee Summit. Before we move on to part number 2, if we haven't met yet, then welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Massa. I'm a licensed real estate agent here on both sides of Kansas and Missouri. And we make these videos to hopefully make your goal of relocating here, moving here, finding the best area to purchase or build a home in the Kansas City area that much easier. And of course, if you have any questions, all of my contact as always is down below. We're never too busy to take your phone call. So please give us a phone call, text message, email. We'd absolutely love to support you on buying or building a home right here in Kansas City. Part number 2 has to be the schools. And that's because both of the most popular districts in Overland Park and Lee Summit, these are some of the major draws. One of the major reasons why people would want to move to either of these suburbs. So in this video, I know we just covered, we broke down Overland Park into 3 different parts. And the reason we did that is because Overland Park is home to the Blue Valley School District, one of the most popular in the entire country. It's also one that most people are drawn to when they're starting to look into where to move in the Kansas City area. But it only covers central and south Overland Park. It doesn't cover north of that 435 highway that we talked about. That'll be covered by the Shawnee Mission School District. But for the purpose of this video, we're just going to compare Blue Valley to the Lee Summit School District, which yes, Lee Summit, similar situation. You've got some of the outskirts of Lee Summit, like the northeast, the Lakewood area. Some of those will fall in Blue Springs School District, which is also very highly rated. You've got some of the southwestern parts of the city that'll fall in the Raymore Peculiar School District. But we're going to compare Blue Valley versus Lee Summit. So according to niche.com, Blue Valley School District, it's one of the best in the entire state of Kansas. You've got some of the best teachers, and it's also known as one of the best places to teach. And you'll notice that Lee Summit, according to niche.com, has some similar rankings. You've got some of the best teachers, some of the best athletes, and also one of the best places to teach on the Missouri side. Now, I do want to be clear that I don't have a horse in either of these races. I think there are big advantages to both of these areas. Some of them will have some distinct advantages versus the other, but that's up to you to decide. And I'll explain kind of the rubric that a lot of my clients have found successful here in just a second. But first things first is that the Blue Valley School District serves a little bit bigger of a population, since Overland Park has almost double the population size of Lee Summit. You've got 5 total high schools, several new elementary schools opening up every like 3 to 4, if not 5 years at this point. And Lee Summit, because there's still a lot of land because the population is growing quickly, and also you're seeing quite a bit of development where they're going to have to keep opening elementary schools to keep pace with that demand. But instead of 5 high schools, they've currently got 3 total high schools, and who knows, that could very well change here in the near future. Now, my best advice, if you're stuck on the fence between one versus the other when it comes to choosing schools, I think more important than all the stats that you can read online, because some of these stats will matter for you, some of these stats won't matter for you, is speaking with the administrators, speaking with the school officials, and also when you come and visit the Kansas City area, if you're relocating here, you're trying to find the best area for you, scheduling a time to make sure you're able to walk through some of those schools, because that feeling you get, what your gut tells you, is probably going to be way more indicative of what's the best choice for you and your children than any stats online. Now, the last thing that I want to say is if you are comparing the Kansas side versus the Missouri side, something that I like the idea of quite a bit is open enrollment. It was just passed in the state of Kansas. What that means is, as a taxpayer in this state, you get to choose regardless of school boundaries, which is previously what decided, which elementary school, middle school, and high school you were zoned to. That no longer matters anymore. And as long as there's space in a school, you can choose to send your children to whichever school you'd like. That is not something that's possible on the Missouri side, and that's specific to the state of Kansas. So again, I don't have a horse in either of these races, but this is what I found to work the best, what a lot of my clients have found to work the best as they're relocating to the Kansas City area and looking for some of the best schools. It's very nice to know that on either of these cities, you're in really good hands, because these are some of the best districts in the entire Kansas City metro area. Part number 3 has to be home prices, and that's because there's such a major difference in some of the prices that you'll see in Overland Park compared to Lee Summit. And that's why we started this video with breaking down the population density. And keep in mind, Overland Park has almost double the size of the population, but just a little bit bit more land than you see in Lee Summit. So naturally the prices are going to be a little bit higher, but I'm going to show you exactly how much higher. First with pre-existing and older homes, and then second we're going to go towards new construction. And then at the end I'll show you exactly how fast homes in each of these suburbs are selling, because one is selling a whole lot faster than the other. Now first, when it comes to pre-existing or older homes, so not new construction homes, here's what the data looks like year to date. So currently I'm filming this the 2nd of May, so we've got about 4 months of solid data to work with. Overland Park, the median sale price is around $440,000. Now the reason I'm showing you the median instead of just the average is because you've got a lot of outliers in that average, and I want to show you a more true to the bell curve price that you could expect in Overland Park, and it just happens to be in the mid 400s. In Lee Summit you can see around $370,000, so quite a big price difference right there. That's $70,000. And then of course you've got that average close price, which is a little bit higher just because of some of the outliers. Now keep in mind, this excludes all new construction homes in the search results. So this is pretty true to what you would find if you bought the median house in the city of Lee Summit compared to Overland Park. Now I will say that if you're looking for a more luxury home, a more high-end home that's $800,000 plus, you're going to find far more of those in the city of Overland Park because you've got a bigger population. And since there's a bigger population, the value of some of that land is a little bit more expensive than what you could acquire it for in Lee Summit. So long story short, your money is almost always going to go farther in the real estate market in the city of Lee Summit compared to Overland Park. It all comes down to what you value. If you value the location of Overland Park, then it's well worth it. Now, if we move on to new homes, you'll notice an even bigger difference. So here's the city of Overland Park compared to the city of Lee Summit. You can see the average sale price for new in the year of 2023 in Overland Park was around the mid 800s. And then you can see in Lee Summit is around the mid 500s. So $300,000 difference compared to the median home that you're seeing sell in Overland Park compared to Lee Summit. But here's the wildest difference is if we look at just the Blue Valley School District versus the Lee Summit School District, you're going to see a median sale price at $925,000 in Blue Valley, and in Lee Summit you're still right around that $550,000. So what that tells me is to be in that Blue Valley School District in a brand new construction home, and you're paying a little bit over half of that to be in a similar home that you'd see in the city of Lee Summit. Now, one piece of context that you should have is that some of the homes going in the Blue Valley School District that are new construction are pretty high end, but you are paying quite a bit of a premium. The land is going to be almost like 30 to 40% more expensive than what it would be in Lee Summit. The cost to build is going to be a little bit more expensive because of the city of Overland Park compared to Lee Summit. There are a couple other costs that go into it. So if you are on the fence of building a new construction home, you're just looking for the right place to do it, make sure to reach out. A lot of my clients are in a very similar position. I'd absolutely love to help you do the same, whether it's finding a very private lot that backs to green space or staying in a specific price range. We've been able to do it no matter how specific the request is. We're never too busy to take your call, so make sure to reach out, phone call, text message, email. Would love to help you with any new construction or pre-existing home needs. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is a comparison between some of the new homes that you'd see in Overland Park versus Lee Summit. And I know that these comparisons are always incredibly arbitrary. So this first one, this is a new construction home in Lee Summit priced at $558,000. So this is what that median sale price could get you. You can see it's a reverse 1.5. It's 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 2,400 square feet, and it's around an 8,700 square foot lot, which I would say is a little bit smaller of a lot compared to most new construction lots that we see around Kansas City. Now here's an example of a reverse 1.5 story home that you'll see in Overland Park. You'll notice that it's priced at $850,000, which is that median for the entire city. 4 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, so it's got an additional half bath, 2,700 square feet, so it's almost 400 square feet bigger, and it's on a 10,800 square foot lot, so about a fifth of an acre size lot. Now, of course, that big discrepancy in the price is not just because of Blue Valley, Overland Park versus Lee Summit, but it's also because of some of the selections. But still, I think you get the point, which is that your money, especially when it goes to building a home in the city of Lee Summit, it's going to go farther. You're going to get a little bit bigger of a home, potentially an even more premium lot that you could possibly get in Overland Park, just because the lots are getting a little bit smaller and you have to pay a little bit more for those premium lots because of the population demands. Now, before the final part of the video where we break down how fast homes in Overland Park are selling compared to Lee Summit, if you're moving to the Kansas City area for the first time, or you're just moving from one area of Kansas City to the other, maybe maybe you're on the fence between an Overland Park versus Lee Summit, or maybe it's a couple other suburbs that you've got in mind. Whether you're buying or building a new construction home in Kansas City, we'd absolutely love to support you. Make sure to give me a phone call, text message, email. All that contact info is down in the description below. We're never too busy to take your call, and it's always me who answers each and every one of them. So if you have any questions, if you like any support, we're here to help. Now, final part of the video. Here's that picture that shows how quickly homes are selling in Lee Summit compared to Overland Park. You can see the median days to sell in Lee Summit is around 12 days compared to just 3 in Overland Park. And you'll also notice the close price to list price ratio. Homes are selling over that asking price by just 1.4% in Overland Park. Some homes in Lee Summit are selling below that list price. Now, what this tells me, if I'm looking for a pre-existing home, which this does not take into account new construction homes, entirely separate market. If I'm looking for a pre-existing home, my sole strategy in this market with tight inventory is to sidestep as much competition as possible. And again, this comes back to getting more value for your money, getting a good deal, making it as convenient as possible, not having to write a ton of offers after offers after offers, which you would have seen more of the last couple of years. But according to that data, Overland Park, it's going to be a dogfight for some of those homes in the 300s, 400s, and even 500s. And Lee Summit, it's not going to be as competitive. So if you're looking at this just from the perspective of, I want to maximize the value of my home, I want to get the best home that I can get for the value of my money, you're almost certainly going to find that in Lee Summit if you value a little bit more of a small town feel. And to the contrary, if you're looking to be in a more hustle bustle area of the Kansas City Metro, one of the best school districts in the entire Kansas City Metro, nationally rated, etc., and in Johnson County on the Kansas side where you've got open enrollment, you've got a little bit more flexibility with the school districts, then that could be very well worth it moving to Overland Park. But let me know in the comments down below, which one are you leaning to? Are you after more of a small town feel? Do you want to be in an area of town where there's a little bit more going on, a little bit more restaurants, entertainment spots, etc. to do? And if you had to move today to either one of these, would it be Overland Park or would it be Lee Summit? Leave that comment down below. Of course, if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. And in the meantime, here's a playlist of all the other Kansas City Suburbs Showdown videos that we've done. We've covered plenty of the other suburbs in the Johnson County area versus Overland Park and other popular suburbs. Or you can click right here and watch the video YouTube thinks you would enjoy the most. So click either here or here, and I'll see you on the other side.